Welcome to Office Hours by Triple A's Church. I'm your host, Carl Thomas. I'm a pastor, certified neurohealth coach, and a guy who frankly struggled with a lot of the stuff we talk about here for over 20 years until I found freedom over a decade ago. In today's episode, I'm going to be jumping in and answering this question. Should I abstain from sex for 60 days to reset my brain? That's what I will be discussing today, so make sure you're hanging there with me. Recognizing no questions are off the table, and I'm going to be as honest with my answers as I possibly can be, so don't get offended. Without any further delay, let's jump in. All right, so this question came into our Office Hours page. This person writes in, I have finally started feeling real freedom from nearly 20 years of porn addiction. Still struggle with masturbation though. I've been married for 10 years now, and I'm wondering if we should stop our sex life, which has recently started to blossom. I haven't really gone through 60 days without orgasm to reset my brain. If we do that, how would one think about kisses, intimate hugs, nakedness, etc.? All right, great question. What you're kind of tapping into here is this idea out there of a dopamine detox. And like a lot of things out there when it comes to porn and sex addiction, sometimes the science is a little weak. All right, so is there really such a thing as dopamine detox? Is there not? It's kind of a debated issue. I will tell you this, when it comes to porn, masturbation, orgasm, searching. Okay, so it's not just porn. When it comes to any of these things, yes, dopamine has a big part in that process. All right, because our brains, they kind of crave new experiences. They crave novelty, if you will. And dopamine is something our brain really, really likes. Now, understand, dopamine is not an evil drug. It's a neurotransmitter our brain needs to function properly. In fact, without the right amounts of dopamine, that you can suffer other mental illnesses. So dopamine is really important. The problem is when we masturbate, look at porn, things like that, we create floods of dopamine in our brain that our brain's not used to. And of course, it feels very euphoric, i.e. that's why an orgasm feels so amazing, right? And when we do that on an ongoing basis, yes, our brain kind of resets its baseline and gets used to like a certain level of pleasure, right? Or a certain level of dopamine, if you will. So what happens is over time, we stop doing these things to feel good and we start doing these things just not to feel bad. And that really is what an addiction is, right? It's when we stop doing something, drinking, drugs, whatever, to just feel good. And now we're just doing these things so we feel normal, so we don't feel bad, right? So there is some wisdom in, hey, I need to, or there is some merit in the idea of, hey, I need to stop, blasting my brain with these dopamine boosts so it can kind of come back to ground zero, right? Because when you're up here and you start to come down to normal, it feels like a crash if you're used to living up here, right? So we do have to go some time to let our brain kind of come back down to earth so it doesn't feel like a crash when we're not experiencing frequent dopamine floods. So that's all important to understand, right? There is definitely some merit to that. Now, 60 to 90 days is generally the rule that people throw around saying in terms of like when your brain starts to reset, quote unquote. It's not a hard and fast rule. It varies from person to person. And it's also not this thing that you need to think of as like, okay, hey, if I just lock down everything and start today cold turkey, I'll be fine in 60 to 90 days. It's a little more complicated than that, all right? It's more of a journey. And just because you whip, let's just say the dopamine side of this thing and your brain does reset, it doesn't mean you're out of the woods because you still might have a lot of emotional things to work through, which are generally the reason you kind of went to this stuff in the first place, right? So a lot more here than just dopamine. As far as not having sex with your wife, I have heard some, generally couples, couple counselors or couple coaches who work with couples that have pornography issues in their marriage. I have heard some of them recommend like a certain period of abstinence. So there is some merit to that. I would say maybe talk to a counselor or maybe talk to a coach. I'll put a link below to some marriage coaches that we work with in California. You can always hit them up for a free consult. But yeah, there might be some merit to that. I would caution you on it though and just say, hey, like, definitely talk to someone about it, talk to each other about it. This should not just be something you do on your own. And regardless, if you do decide to abstain from sex for a certain period of time, don't abstain from intimacy. And you're like, some people are here, well, what do you mean? If I'm not having sex, how am I being intimate? Intimacy is a much bigger thing than just intercourse, right? So still spending quality time, still holding hands, still talking, still non-sexual touch, right? Cuddling, things like that. These are all good things for you and your wife to continue doing so you continue to build those bonds of intimacy, which is going to lead to a much better sex life, okay? But yeah, so you can still be intimate without having intercourse. However, again, like I said, I would probably talk to someone about that. Now, from a personal experience, I can tell you right now, my wife and I never did that whole 60, 90-day fasting thing from sex. We never did, and we're fine. We came out of it fine. I was able to overcome my addiction, if you will, without having to do that. It just never came into the picture. So I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary, but there are those out there that would say that it could be advisable depending on the situation. And again, you need to do this thing together. That's all I got. If you have a question for me that you want me to answer in an upcoming Office Hours episode, go to triplexchurch.com/office-hours. Submit your question there and I will answer it. That's about it. Have a great weekend.